We can only destroy ourselves as Americans if we allow fear and hatred to turn us against each other. It is the American Muslim community that is today at the forefront of defending these principles of justice. We are the ones that, inshallah, will make America great for all people.
Islam was present in what became the United States of America before there was a United States of America.
This country right here is our country, and we deserve to live here like everybody else.
America's three evils of racism and poverty and war.
As Muslims, we recognize and we understand that there are going to be challenges in our lives.
When bigotry and hatred seems to have bubbled up to the surface, are we living up to the test as Muslims?
Now is the time for our Muslim youth to step forward and start assuming responsibility to help guarantee your own future.
Patriotism means when your country is right, you praise it. But when it is wrong, you have to stand up and speak the truth.
Now, Muslims from across the country are stepping up, and young Muslim Americans are watching with a renewed sense of belonging. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. You know, happy times to more unfortunate times because of the fearful times that we live in. You know, being born and raised in this country, I always thought I was no different than any other child in school or growing up in the neighborhood. I thought I was the same as every other kid. Then September 11th hit. And if many of you have kids who grew up in that time, or I was in high school at that time, it was a pretty interesting time for us. It was a time of fear. I remember seeing a lot of the parents in the community, they were so fearful and concerned that they had a lot of their daughters or even their wives and their sisters take their hijab off because of fear. Islamophobia was on the rise. Bigotry continued to gain. And I felt during that time I had a responsibility to my community growing up. It's part of the reason why I decided after high school, went to college, I became an attorney. Because as attorneys, we're social engineers. We use our ability to fight for you by using our constitution and laws of this country. And because of that constant hateful rhetoric, that constant phrases like terrorist, fundamentalist, radical Islamist, whatever that means. These are the words that people are calling you and I on social media, on the 24/7 news cycle, and sadly, sometimes even in our own communities. And because of this fear and this constant controversy and this Islamophobia, our children, they're straying away from our faith. They don't want to acknowledge their identity. And in some cases, because we associate our cultural baggages that we bring from back home with our faith, they're pulling away. So I'm asking you, when are you and I going to begin to step up? When are we going to speak up? When are we as Muslims going to take the pen and begin to write our own story, our own narrative? With hate crimes on the rise, harassment, talk of Muslim bans and building walls, we're finding that we are truly living in difficult times. And in some cases, fearful times. But ask yourself, many of you are much more knowledgeable than I. Are these times as difficult as they were for the Messenger of Allah? Peace and blessings be upon him and our Sahaba. The pain, the fear that they dealt with when they were spreading this beautiful deen. Brothers and sisters, there's two types of people during difficulties. those that regard the difficulties as challenges and opportunities to get closer to our deen, Allah, and service, and those that shy away and pull away. As believers, we have an opportunity to remain firm and hold on to that rope of Allah, like the Imam talked about earlier. It's easy to be a strong Muslim when things are going well, when life's going well, when life is treating you well. But the real reward comes in times of difficulty. That's when we must remain firm for the sake of Allah. Not only do we remain firm, but we share the beauty of our faith, as we're commanded to share with our friends, our coworkers, and our neighbors, through our tongue and our actions. Because it's much more difficult to fear, much more difficult to hate someone when you know them up close and personal. That is how we begin to own our own narrative. When we speak about difficulty, we turn to the life of the Messenger of Allah. And the narrations mention that Aisha, peace and blessings be upon her, asked the Messenger of Allah, what was the most difficult time of your life? Was it the battle of Uhud, when over 70 Sahaba were martyred for this deen? Was it the passing of your uncle Abu Talib, who had protected you as a young child? Or was it the passing of your wife Khadija? Peace and blessings be upon her. And the Messenger of Allah said, no. It was when he came to Taif, when he came to give da'wah to the people of Taif and the people turned upon him. It was almost 10 years into the revelation. The persecution of Muslims had intensified far more than it is today. Thus the Messenger of Allah went to Taif to seek protection and give da'wah. Some of the narrations mention that he remained there for some days. Some say he was there for some weeks. And the people of Taif, they didn't care about what he had to say. They were dismissive. They mocked his message. And not one person embraced Islam during that time. And who was giving da'wah? It was our dear messenger, the best of mankind. The messenger stood at the mountain of Safa and gathered the people. And he said, if I were to tell you behind me there's a mountain and there's an army ready to attack you, would you believe me? And in one voice, they said yes. Because this was a man of impeccable character. And he said, I warn you, there will be a day when each of you will stand before God. However, even his uncle, Abu Lahab, said, may you be destroyed. Is this why you have come and gathered us? And nobody embraced Islam. The narrations mention instead, the people of Taif turned on the messenger. They began to pelt him with rocks until his entire body began to flow with blood. His entire body. The narration mentions that there was so much blood that his sandals began to stick to his feet. And when he finally found shelter and refuge under a tree, he sat down and he began to pray to Allah. And Allah immediately sent him the angel Jibreel, and the angel which controls the mountains. And the angel Jibreel said, Allah has seen what the people of Taif have done to you, and if you wish, I will command the angel that controls the mountain to destroy the people of Taif. And the messenger of Allah looked up at the angels. And what did he say? He said, do not hurt them. They do not know. And I forgive them. And he went on to say, maybe someone from their descendants will embrace Islam. The Messenger of Allah was not angry with the people of Taif. He did not say destroy them. He did not say that the dawah or building relationships with them was not worth it. Subhanallah. Think about how you and I would react if someone treated us that way today. And he went on to say that his only complaint during this difficult time in his life, he complained about his own weakness, of his insignificance in the eyes of these people, and his own lack of ingenuity. He took the blame upon himself. Again, who was this? This was the greatest of men. He utilized methods of dawah and reaching out and building relationships that were unparalleled at the time. Because of his concern for humanity, because he understood the importance of building bridges in relationships, and he understood that he had a purpose. So ask yourself, what are you doing for our ummah? How are you strengthening your weaknesses? Can we do more in these challenging times for our country and our community? In a time when our country is at its very own crossroads, we as Muslim Americans must stand up, take ownership, and step up and lead. Now, this may get me into some hot water, but how many times have you heard our ummos and our uncles at parties and dawats talking about Israel, Palestine, Syria, Kashmir, India? The American people will not begin to care about your plight and your problems back home until you begin to own and have ownership of this country. Those conversations will continue to be conversations around tea and around biryanis. That's all they will be. Because our fellow Americans, right here, literally in our own communities, they're dying because they lack access to affordable health care. Young, unarmed black men in our very own communities are being shot dead by those sworn to protect them. And in our very own state of North Carolina, where I come from, 3 young Muslims only a couple of years ago were murdered execution style in their very own home. Immigrant families are escaping violence with their children and their families and coming to seek refuge at the south of our country's border. And they're being shut out. Children being separated from their families. And all the way from the White House, all the way down to our state houses, our government leaders lack basic transparency, empathy, or decency. That is why we ran. Out of concern for those that may not look like us, but have the same needs as us. Just like the Messenger of Allah taught us, you are truly not a believer until you want for your brothers and sisters what you want for yourself. We ran because we knew and understood that we needed to build bridges in our community. To show the beauty of our faith, we took our message of a strong public school system for all of our children, regardless of a child's race or their economic status or the zip code they come from. An economy that works for all of us, not just the few. And building safe neighborhoods by building people, not prisons. Our faith constantly talks about forgiveness. We knocked on more than 12,000 doors. We made over 7,000 phone calls. We outraised a 3-term incumbent 22-1. And it's because of you and giants that have come before me, like our very own community leaders that built a foundation for us, that built our mosques and community centers. Organizations like ICNA celebrating their 50th year. That is why I humbly stand before you as a North Carolina senator-elect. But we're not alone. My story is not the only one from 2018. You have your very own Senator-elect Rahman from Georgia. Senator Rahman, are you here still? Please stand up. Please give him a hand. Along with me, along with Senator Rahman, more than 100 Muslim Americans signed up to run for office in 2018. A Muslim wave led by, again, you mentioned this, the first ever elected Muslim women to the United States Congress. Takbir. Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, a hijabi Muslim American woman. Her people are banned right now from Somalia because of President Trump. Yet she will be in the United States Congress and will provide checks and balances against this president. Rashida Tlaib in Michigan, a Palestinian American elected to the United States Congress. To quote Sheikh Omar Suleiman, for many years, Muslims have watched elections be about us, without us. Candidates have been with us and against us, but now Muslims from across the country are stepping up and running and winning, and young Muslim Americans are watching with a renewed sense of belonging. So ask yourself, what are you doing? Or what have you done when you had a chance to do something? When you had a chance to do something, you may have posted something on social media to bring attention to a cause. You may have marched in the streets on behalf of a cause. You may have even reached out to your local elected representatives in support of a cause. Now I need you, your children, your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews, whoever you have in your family. You need to get involved. The system of this country is amazing. You have an opportunity to have a seat at the table by volunteering for campaigns, by contributing financially to campaigns, or better yet, running for office yourself, so you can make the decisions about you and your family and your community yourself. Because the reality is, the problems of today aren't going to be solved entirely by the folks in DC. They're going to be solved in our state capitals. They're going to be solved in our city councils, in our school board meetings. And just like the message of Allah, you may be mocked, you may be ridiculed, people may laugh at you. Heck, my name was Mujaba Mohammed, and I ran for North Carolina State Senate in North Carolina. Think about that. Do you know how many people? Do you know how many people came up to me and said, Mujtaba, you should just say Mujtaba for North Carolina. People will think you're Hindu. People told me call myself Mo for North Carolina, so people wouldn't know that I was a Muslim American. But again, how can we begin to write our own narrative, take ownership if we hide who we are? So I proudly ran our campaign for Muhammad for North Carolina. So note the irony of the story of Taif. The people of Taif were the last people to accept Islam. And after the Messenger of Allah's death, many regions of the Muslim world rebelled. However, there were 3 cities where anyone hardly rebelled. That was Mecca, Medina, and the city of Taif. The people of Taif remained firm on their deen. And this is a lesson for you and I. And Allah tells you and I that you are the best of people taken out for the best of humanity. Continue to share Islam. Continue to serve humanity. I ask you to go back home and think about what I've told you today. Contemplate it. Be the voice for your children. Be the voice for your community. And be the voice for our country, the United States of America. Thank you.
We can only destroy ourselves as Americans if we allow fear and hatred to turn us against each other. It is the American Muslim community that is today at the forefront of defending these principles of justice. We are the ones that, inshallah, will make America great for all people.
Islam was present in what became the United States of America before there was a United States of America.
This country right here is our country, and we deserve to live here like everybody else.
America's 3 evils of racism and poverty and war.
As Muslims, we recognize and we understand that there are going to be challenges in our lives.
When bigotry and hatred seems to have bubbled up to the surface, are we living up to the test as Muslims?
Now is the time for our Muslim youth to step forward and start assuming responsibility to help guarantee your own future.
Patriotism means when your country is right, you praise it. But when it is wrong, you have to stand up and speak the truth.
Now, Muslims from across the country are stepping up, and young Muslim Americans are watching with a renewed sense of belonging.
أنا يا صاحي كي تستريح وبث الدعاء الخفي الصريح يسعك الفضاء الرحيب الفسيح